Well, if you were anything like me, your NCAA tournament bracket is already busted. ESPN just released the stat that 95% of brackets submitted to them already have at least one wrong pick, and the tournament just tipped off. But you have a much better chance at picking those first slate of games correct than there is that the top 4 quarterbacks rumored in this first round end up signing a second contract with a team that drafted them. We've talked ad nauseum on this channel about how each first-round quarterback only has a 36% chance of signing a second contract with the team that drafted them, and recently it's been way, way worse than that. And so if you talk about Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, the chance of all 4 of those players signing a second deal with the team that drafted them is a whopping 1.6%. Nevertheless, rumors are persisting that the Denver Broncos are going to try to trade up for one of those dudes. So let's look at the most recent rumors, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on that. As always, I love reading your comments and just engaging in the community here. I'm Ben. I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan, and let's dive in. So Peter Schrager, very, very plugged in, was on Good Morning Football, one of my favorite shows on NFL Network, although rumors of this show is that this show is going away, which kind of stinks. But he came out and said that Sean Payton was really, really high on Patrick Mahomes, which adds further fuel to the fire that he said, hey, I'm going to be good at evaluating quarterbacks, and I'm happy that other teams are not. This adds kind of some fuel to that, hey, he liked Mahomes, and he missed out on Mahomes. And what he came out and said was, hey, Sean Payton lost out on a generational talent once. He will not do that again. And so then we hear really good news that, hey, look, the Cardinals are open for business. Their GM came out and said that he's going to have a big neon sign that says open for business, and then made a funny little joke saying that I don't want a blinking sign because it gives me a headache. But essentially, I think if the Denver Broncos actually want to land JJ McCarthy, they're going to have to move all the way up to the 4th pick. And the reason I think that is twofold. The first reason is that the Minnesota Vikings have been gunning for JJ McCarthy. They've already been loading up on draft assets so that they can move up and get him. So that is there. And you might say, well, I thought the Cardinals were going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I think some of the luster of Marvin Harrison Jr. not working out of the combine, not working out at his pro day, just kind of being a prima donna with his Louis Vuitton cleats and wearing an Apple Watch in a game. I think the Cardinals are like, hey, that's kind of a risky thing. We don't even know if Kyler Murray is the dude, and having those 2 huge personalities in a locker room might be bad news. So you could see them being like, hey, let's trade back and just collect an absolute haul. So the Vikings are gunning for JJ. They might be like, well, we could trade with the Chargers at 5, or we could trade with the Giants. Well, it came out recently that the Giants want a new quarterback. They want to move on from Daniel Jones. Them signing Drew Lock kind of signaled to that they want a competition in that quarterback room. And it came out that they are angry because this is true, that they actually want JJ McCarthy, which means if you take a look at where the Giants are picking at 6, and so if you are a team, you know that if JJ McCarthy falls to 6, he's probably going to get scooped up by the Giants. So that means you got to get in front of the Giants. And so, I think that the Giants and the Vikings are going to be talking to the Cardinals and being like, what is it going to take to move up? There's a lot of different trade value calculators out there on how much each pick is actually worth, and you got the Jimmy Johnson trade value, and then this is the one that teams have been using more and more. It's the Spielberg and Fitzgerald chart, which shows what each pick is worth, and they're saying that the 4th pick in this draft is about 2,297 points, and where the Broncos are, they're at 1,741. The Giants here would have to give up less to hop up into this 4th. And, if you're the Cardinals and you could just trade back to 6 and then still get Marvin Harrison Jr. or get Brock Bowers, like that's a great deal for them. The other pick that really seems that it could be in play for one of these teams to move up would be moving up to the 8th pick in the draft, and that's Atlanta Falcons hold this right now. They have Kirk Cousins. My guess is with all they paid for Kirk Cousins, they wouldn't draft JJ McCarthy there. If somehow JJ falls to the 8th, I think that is where the Broncos should try to make their move. It would take a lot to be competing with the Vikings and the Giants here for this pick. We also saw a really interesting mock draft here from The Athletic, who predicted that JJ would fall into the Denver Broncos at 8, and the Denver Broncos would need to send this first-round draft pick. They'd need to send their second, which is our next pick, which would make for a kind of boring day 2, if you will, because we wouldn't have a second-round draft pick, and then a future second-round draft pick. And if that's all that it takes to get JJ McCarthy, and if truly that is who Sean Payton is in love with and sees as the next Patrick Mahomes, I would be all for that. But I think this mock draft and this most recent speculation is a little off, knowing that we got to get in front of the Vikings, and now we got to get in front of the Giants. That is going to be a much, much harder needle to thread, and I think we would end up having to give a lot of draft capital. So my entire view on trading up is that it is a really, really risky maneuver with a high ceiling and a really, really low floor. And I think in life, the better you are, the riskier you can become. If somehow the Denver Broncos pull this off and we land Mahomes and we had to give up 2 or 3 first-round draft picks to get a Patrick Mahomes-type talent, of course we would all be thrilled for it, but we are making a risky move for a 36% chance hit rate, and I don't feel great about that, but I want to hear from y'all. Do you think that JJ McCarthy is a generational talent enough and is worth the risk of trading up? He is the player that I would just rip my shirt off and I'd get like a JJ tat if somehow he could fall to us. And even if we had to give up a couple second-round draft picks to move up to 8, I'd be thrilled to death. But I think that is becoming less and less realistic with all of the different teams who are rumored to want him. The other caveat would be that you could see situations where the Giants are trying to collect assets, and so the Giants want someone to trade up because it helps them out, and maybe they are okay with Daniels, and so therefore they want the Broncos to give them some picks and move up to that 8 slot. But I'm very curious, would you be more excited to pick Bo Nix at 12 and have him fall to us, or trade the farm and do a little riskier move, give up more draft capital to get a JJ McCarthy? Who do you think is better suited to step in and run the Sean Payton system? I think JJ McCarthy has been a lifelong winner from high school in Illinois to going 26-1 as a starter at the University of Michigan, where Bo Nix is a much older kid. He's older than some players in the league now, which is always a red flag to me. And I think it would be a much a better move for the Denver Broncos to hope for Bo Nix panning out. Coach's son, he talked about the thing that he brings is quick processing and just leadership. And if you really think, what does Sean Payton want in a quarterback? I think that is what he wants. But very curious to hear what you all think. What do you want? And then what would your prediction be for what happens with the Denver Broncos in like a month when the actual madness begins? Let's get past all this March Madness basketball stuff. It is time for draft preparation, and I can't wait to be riding with y'all. So Broncos country, let's giddy up. If I make this, we're getting JJ at 8. Well, it's happening.